Hello friends! A shocking, unbelievable, sensational story that has been written about by many online publications and which is what you, dear viewers, are about to hear. Lyuba and Yura were successful. The Gribov family seemed perfect. They had met at school and had not left each other for a long time. They had a noticeable persistence and knew they could achieve anything through their efforts and hard work. After graduation, the young people went to the capital city together. At first, they rented low-cost accommodation. A few years passed and they saved up a small amount of money. Then they sold the flats left by their parents and were able to buy the house near Moscow that they had always dreamed of. Yura loved his wife just as he had loved her years before when they started dating. However, he wasn't always able to see that she was sad. Lyuba tried to hide her worries from him. There was no reason to upset Yura because she was constantly thinking about the pregnancy, which never happened. The couple tried for years to have a baby but had no success. They went to a fertility clinic where they were offered various options. The doctor said the procedure was safe, but the woman felt uncomfortable. She told her husband about her fears and he agreed with her. It was not worth taking such a severe step if there were any doubts. They had always supported each other, and this time Yura agreed with her without any questions. Lyuba had been thinking about adopting a child from an orphanage for a long time, and recently she saw a baby girl on television who was abandoned and felt that she could become a mother to her. She and her husband quickly got the necessary documents to adopt the baby, and Yura agreed. He was thinking about it himself. They went to the orphanage to meet the girl, but another childless couple was about to adopt her. But Yura and Lyuba were not going to give up. Once they had decided to adopt a child, they had to go through with it. They talked to the orphanage director and arranged to see the children, but the first impression was horrible. The problem was not that the children were untidy or poorly dressed, but each had such a hopeful look in their eyes that they just wanted to run away. Lyuba understood that each child hoped to call them mom and dad, but somehow it wasn't the girls in their cute dresses that caught her eye, though she had always dreamt of having a daughter. A boy was sitting in the corner examining his palms folded into a boat. This scene made an indelible impression on Lyuba, though she didn't understand why. After a short chat with the children, they went out the door with the educator, who asked if they liked anyone and said that little Elena was very similar to how they looked. There was no need to explain anything to the others. 4-year-old Sveta was already helping her with the other children. Lyuba was not listening to her praise but asked about the boy sitting alone in the corner of the room. She answered that his name was Tikhon and that he had come to the orphanage not long ago. A few months ago, he was found by a homeless woman in the bushes and brought to the hospital, where he was examined and handed over to the social welfare authorities. No one reported a missing child matching the description to the police. He looked about 2 to 3 years old, was perfectly healthy but too young to say anything about himself. That's how he ended up in an orphanage. The boy was timid, the educator said, except that he sometimes cried out at night. The couple went to the director where they were to inform him of their decision. On the way, the woman whispered to her husband that she wanted to adopt this boy. He was surprised for she had dreamed of having a girl, but Lyuba said she had bonded with him. Yura wondered how it could have happened in such a short time, but he didn't mind. When they went to the director, they were told the boy had not fully adapted and might have problems with him, but the couple was ready to do whatever it took. Now all they had to do was collect the necessary documents. When everything was ready, Lyuba and Yura took the boy home. They already knew that they should not break the child's routine at the beginning so that he would feel less anxious about the new circumstances, so they took him to the bathroom at the right time. As the boy was being bathed, the woman noticed an unusual spot on his arm in the shape of a big dot. Soon Tikhon fell asleep and Lyuba began a conversation with her husband. She remembered an incident from childhood when one of the yard bullies started harassing Asya Zhuravleva. The girl had a birthmark on her arm and Petya told her to wash it off, to which Asya replied that it was a mark from a stork. For that, she was even nicknamed the Stork. Yura understood that his wife was trying to say, though she wasn't sure if Tikhon's birthmark had anything to do with their childhood friend. It could have been a coincidence, but the woman couldn't get it out of her head. Her intuition told her that she had to get to the truth. She decided to call her former classmate the class leader, who knew everything and kept tabs on everyone. Yura's home phone number was still in her address book, and Lyuba didn't think that she lived there, but she was lucky. Her classmate immediately picked up the phone. It took some time to say hello and explain everything, and then Lyuba began to ask if Yura knew how life was going for the other classmates since she still lived in her hometown. The woman started to tell what she knew. It turned out fate cruelly dealt with Asya Zhuravleva. She got married, but her husband became a cheater and they divorced. Moreover, someone took away her child when he was an infant. At the time, people were talking a lot about it, but Lyuba and Yura had already moved to Moscow and didn't know anything. After this happened, Asya's parents faded away and soon passed away, and Asya started to go crazy. Her ex-husband immediately tried to put her into psychiatric hospital, but an aunt of one of her classmates worked there and helped her prove there was nothing wrong with her. Liuba and Nira talked some more time, then they said goodbye. After the conversation, the woman became even more convinced that the adopted boy was Asia's son. She discussed it with her husband and he said that he had to go to her hometown and have a DNA test done without Asia finding out. She couldn't just show up and say they found her child. It might not be right and it would be a real heartbreak for the mother in that case. Liuba left her husband with a child and went to her childhood town. The train ride took several hours and by lunchtime she was already there, staying in a hostel where she dropped off her luggage and then decided to visit the graves of her and her husband's parents. She cried, tidied the graveyard for a while and then returned to the city. At first she decided to go to the shopping area where there were grocery shops. She realized she hadn't stocked up on food. She walked thoughtfully around the shop thinking about the best way to meet Asia, and at that moment she saw her right there. The meeting was emotional. They hadn't seen each other for years. Liuba had no idea where to start, so she suggested they start by sitting somewhere to talk. They went to the nearest cafe and ordered a meal. Liuba told her about her and her husband's life after moving to Moscow. She didn't say anything about the fact that they had adopted a boy and then carefully tried to talk about Asia's life. It was as if Asia was waiting for an opportunity to speak out. Too many things had happened to her, bad things in the past years. She talked about the day she had lost her son. Her mother-in-law had come to visit and didn't like the mess in the house. She said she would take Artyom for a walk and Asia could clean up the mess in the meantime. The boy was only a few months old. The woman dressed the baby and gave him to her mother-in-law, and she never saw him again. Nobody understood what had happened. The mother-in-law said she'd left the baby carriage for a minute to buy a bottle of water and the baby had gone when she returned. More than 2 years had passed since then. After her son disappeared, Asia discovered that her husband had another woman. Of course, by then she didn't care. She just wanted her child back. For some reason, the woman was sure that her husband's lover had been involved in the boy's disappearance. She was ready to pay her any amount of money so she would tell her the truth. However, the investigators discovered that her husband's mistress had an ironclad alibi. Asia couldn't believe it and kept begging her, but she was undeterred. It seemed a real obsession. Her husband moved back to his mother's house and Asia decided to make another attempt. She went home to her husband's mistress, but she still said she knew nothing, with sadistic pleasure in her eyes. Asia couldn't stand it and attacked her with her fists. The police did not prosecute only because the woman refused to report her, allegedly out of respect for Asia's husband. The husband tried to send his wife to a mental hospital, and Artyom, the little boy, was never found. Investigators found nothing, nor could the private detectives hired by the traumatized mother find anything. There were many people in the park where the mother-in-law was walking with the boy, and it was impossible to find the person who had kidnapped a child. Since then, Asia has lived only with the hope of one day being reunited with her son. Men liked her, she had always been a natural beauty, but she didn't want to get married again. The friends talked some more and then left. Liuba inconspicuously put in her bag a glass from which Asia was drinking and then a napkin. She wrapped her gum and then went to Moscow. The couple took the genetic material to the laboratory. They only had to wait for the result, though they already knew that Tikhon was actually Artyom. There were too many matches to be a coincidence. The test results confirmed their guesses. The boy was indeed Asia's son. The first thing the couple did was go to a psychologist to help them plan how to carefully tell the truth to the mother and the child so their mental health wasn't affected. They also had to apply for a refusal of adoption. By then, Asia already knew about everything, but the judges at the court looked at them askance. No one had any idea why they were refusing to give up a recently adopted boy. The mother gradually got to know her son. They had a long way to go before they became a real family to each other. Only a few months later, Asia took Artyom back to his hometown. By then, the boy had ultimately settled in and was already talking. When Liuba started to feel nauseous and occasionally felt dizzy, she didn't understand what was wrong and put it down to stress from everything. But the symptoms persisted and she began to suspect that she might be pregnant. Trying not to get her hopes up for a miracle, she took some tests, which confirmed her guess she was indeed expecting a baby. A few months later, the long-awaited baby girl was born. By pure chance, the mother was reunited with her son, and the long-awaited baby was born into a happy family. Let's wish happiness to these bright people who went through many ordeals, and life has fully rewarded them. We want them kindness and many happy years of life. Were there any coincidences that seemed unbelievable in your life? Share your opinion in the comments. And dear friends, support this channel with your likes and subscriptions. Thanks for watching, and see you in the following episodes.